My name's Tally Casey, and I grew up in the upstate. I was born and raised in Greenville, went to high school there. When I was a teenager, I really wanted to fly airplanes, so I applied to the Air Force Academy and learned kind of the hard way in 1987 that it wasn't, women were not allowed to fly fighters, and I wanted to fly F-16s. So I went to my plan B, went to college at Princeton, University of Virginia Law School, and then when the Combat Exclusion Bill was repealed in 1993, I turned my eyes again towards flying, and I interviewed at our South Carolina Air National Guard unit here down at McIntyre in Eastover, South Carolina. I got a pilot slot, and so I started training there, enlisted there in 1996, and flew F-16s until 2012. And I am a lawyer in Columbia now. I have my firm, Weich, is a statewide firm. We have our biggest office up here in the upstate, Greenville. We've got Spartanburg office as well. And I've got 3 children, ages 13, 14, and 21.
Okay.
First job out of college was at a wonderful place called the Legal Action Center for the Homeless. I was working in New York City. I went to college in New Jersey. And there I was able to represent homeless and indigent people who needed assistance with all sorts of problems. And we were able, as non-lawyers, to actually represent them in administrative courts in New York. And so I learned in a wonderful way the power of giving aid to someone who doesn't have a voice and helping someone who can't help themselves. And I learned the power of the law and its power for good. And so the next year I went to the University of Virginia School of Law. And I ended up coming back to South Carolina for a lot of reasons, but one of which was to fly with the South Carolina Air National Guard. And I started practicing here in 2000.
How did you get involved in the campaign?
Well, I've actually been asked over the past 10 years or so to run for public office, and by people I know and respect. And each time I've said no, but this time was different. Of course, as a lawyer, I pay attention to what happens in the Supreme Court, and the Dawes decision was a defining moment for me. And I felt then that I could no longer sit on the sidelines, that I could see the writing on the wall. What I didn't expect was what happened next, and that was a call from Joe Cunningham. And I really felt like I couldn't say no. He had great vision, a great platform, and I truly was filled with hope and being given the opportunity after having fought for our freedoms overseas to be able to come back here at home and fight for them again really was, I felt it was truly my calling.
Let's talk a little bit about the campaign. As Democrats, you guys are going to be the underdogs in the state. What are some of the strategies that you guys are using to address those difficulties?
What this campaign brings is new leadership, new voice, new ideas, and what we are, what we are hoping to change is a lack of leadership, a lack of ideas. And I think that a lot of people, that resonates with a lot of people. Our Joe's freedom agenda, what we are focused on is bringing more freedom to South Carolinians, not less. And like I said, I think that resonates with many, many people. Over the course of the past few weeks, as we've traveled the state and talked to voters, I've had so many people come up to me and say, whether they're a woman or a man or a veteran, and say, I've been a Republican my whole life, but I'm going to vote for you too.
Let's talk a little bit about the freedom agenda. One of the platforms is eliminating the state income tax. Can you talk a little bit about why you guys are promoting that and what you would hope to accomplish?
One of the things that Joe and I are frustrated about with South Carolina is that we are losing jobs, we're losing our young people to other states. And limiting the state income tax is just one way to bring those things back to the state. And he has ideas for how to do that. And working towards limiting the state income tax, I think, is something that resonates with a lot of voters. And it's time for us to bring South Carolina into a competitive future.
Legalizing marijuana and sports betting. Let's talk a little bit about that. In what way would you guys want to see that implemented, and how would the funds be used?
Well, there are other states who have done this already and use the revenue. There are lots of ways we can use that revenue in addition to eliminating state income tax, improving our roads, improving teacher pay. South Carolinians want that. If this weekend there are going to be a bunch of college games and people are going to place bets in those games, it's happening, and the state can draw revenue from that and do good with it. That's what we need to do. As far as medical marijuana, the polls show that the majority of South Carolinians believe that it should be legalized. Medical marijuana should be legalized. And, particularly for someone like me who understands how that is important to veterans suffering from PTSD as an option, they should have the freedom to do that.
How do you see those funds being used for infrastructure?
Infrastructure is very important. Using the revenue that we could get from legalizing sports betting and medical marijuana, we can use that revenue to help improve our roads. Our roads are terrible in South Carolina. It's the first thing that people encounter when they come to our state, and it as we were talking about earlier, it really is something that we have got to work on. Here's what people in South Carolina are looking at. They've got a governor who's been governor for 6 years, no new ideas. You've got a governor who's been in politics for over 40 years. That's longer than Joe has been alive. And he wants 4 more years to do what? The first ad that he put out, it wasn't about his new ideas and what he was going to do and what he has done. It was just attacking Joe.
Because there's such, preponderance of Republican voters in the state, what are some of the strategies or tactics you guys are thinking of to get people out that may not have normally voted for Democrat, or people who maybe don't vote at all?
It's talking to people and it's listening to people. The issues that are facing South Carolina cannot be clearly delineated by party lines. They're issues that affect everybody. And the issues that people are screaming about right now are issues about their freedom, about their individual rights. And the majority of, the people of South Carolina, the voice of South Carolinians needs to be listened to. And Joe and I are listening to those voices. People of South Carolina want choice. They want women to have a choice over what happens to her body. The people of South Carolina want the option to have medical marijuana legalized. We are listening to those voices. It's not about parties. And I think that that's the difference here, is sincerity and the respect for the voice of people of South Carolina.
You said earlier that the Dobbs decision really was kind of the impetus for you to get into the political forum. What is it about that issue that resonates so strongly with you?
That's a good question. It wasn't something that I thought that I was going to be faced in my life. For 50 years, women have had the right to make decisions about their own body. Women have had the ability to control their own bodies. We haven't had to worry about our daughters and our granddaughters having less rights than we did. And when the Dobbs decision came down, of course, now state leadership has the ability, or is to make laws that can strip women of their rights. And that's a terrifying thing. And I think that this speaks to women and men, families all over South Carolina. It wasn't enough that we already had a 6-week ban that was signed into law by McMaster last year. But the legislators came back from their vacation. They passed a sine die motion, came back from their vacation to do one thing, to take away women's rights. And, these are mainly old men who are in legislative districts that they've drawn themselves. And they are unfortunately governed by extreme positions. They aren't listening to the people of South Carolina, and they aren't representing their voice. And I think it's time for someone to stand up. The draconian law that was passed last week in the Senate, that is not only going to criminalize women for seeking an abortion, but it's also going to imprison doctors if they perform healthcare. It's going to strip away their medical licenses. It makes it a felony for someone to aid a woman in getting an abortion. They're literally making it with that bill, which is going to be considered by the House soon, not exactly sure when, with that bill, they're making it easier to prosecute doctors and nurses than rapists.
What would you like to see in terms of abortion legislation in the state? What would you prefer it go back to the status quo that was established under Dobbs, Roe v. Wade, or do you have a preference?
Joe and I believe that Roe v. Wade was the right balance that South Carolina had for 50 years. You know, obviously, the role of government is to decide difficult issues like this and to make a balance, right? There's the interest of the state and there's the interest of the individual. And we believe that Roe v. Wade struck that balance just right.
What are some of the lessons that you've learned in your campaigning so far?
Well, I've had the advantage of getting to meet so many people in the past several weeks, and many of the folks that I've met are young people. And I've seen young people energized by this campaign, energized politically in a way that I've never seen. And I think it's because they finally see themselves in the candidates. One thing that I've certainly learned is that if you ask people what's important to them and what they're worried about, you can learn so much.
What do you want to say to the voters who may still be on the fence?
I'd like to meet you. We're going to be crisscrossing the state, meeting people all over the place. And also, let me just tell you, we have a path to success. I know that, I don't know if you've heard about the recent poll that we got back with Joe down 7 points. You know, he's closer than he was in 2018 when he won before. And what the poll also showed is that among people who actually knew Joe Cunningham and Henry McMaster, Joe is ahead by 8 points. And with women and independents, he was ahead by double digits. So there is definitely a path to success for this ticket. And I would encourage people to get to know us. Go online, joeforsouthcarolina.com. If you want to learn more about our platform, about me, reach out to us. And my email address is tally@joeforsouthcarolina.com. And if you've got questions or concerns, I would love to hear them.
Are there certain key moments in your life that you feel have led you down the path that you're on now?
I'll tell you a story. When I was a kid, my parents told me that I could always do anything I wanted. I was fortunate. I had some very good parents. And so I never saw my gender as a barrier to anything. You know, when I was in high school, I wanted to play soccer, and we didn't have a girls' team. This was the 80s, so I played on the boys' team. And I did Okinawan karate. There weren't a lot of women who competed as I rose to like black belt level, and so I fought the boys. And so then when I wanted to fly airplanes, and I wanted to fly F-16s, and I applied for this pilot slot and was really shocked by the response I got, which was, you know, girls can't do that. That's cute, honey, but girls can't do that. And I didn't realize that there was actually a statute that prohibited it, prohibited by law. So for the first time in my life, I was watching my dream evaporate in front of my eyes simply because of the fact that I've been born a woman. And so I don't ever want anyone else to have that experience. I don't ever want my daughter or any other little girl in South Carolina to have the fact that she's a woman